Okay, let's get real for a second. What if the reason people keep mistaking INFJs for having ADHD isn't just because we're misunderstood, but because the brain itself is playing tricks on both sides? Today, we're going to talk about INFJs, ADHD, where they overlap, where they don't, and what that means for anyone who's ever wondered, do I have ADHD or am I just an INFJ trying to survive in a noisy world? Before we go deeper, I want to bring in the voices of real INFJs who also live with ADHD. These aren't theories. These are raw, unfiltered experiences shared online by people who know this struggle firsthand. I want you to listen and see if any of this feels familiar to you.
INFJ with ADHD. A hell of a thing. I really enjoy structure, but I struggle constantly. Spontaneity stresses me out. I suffer from time blindness but hate being late. I'm indecisive not out of fear, but because of choice analysis.
This captures the daily tug of war between wanting order and getting pulled into chaos.
What's it like being an INFJ with ADHD? I didn't struggle until college. Abstract thinking came naturally. I'd space out when engaging. I was terrible with directions and very forgetful.
This is how INFJ intuition can mask ADHD for years, until life demands more structure and the cracks start to show.
ADHD and INFJ? What are you? My INFJ antagonizes my ADHD. I know my mental diagnosis is a large part of me, and sometimes it feels like the two identities are at war.
This is the identity clash. INFJ values pulling one way, ADHD wiring pulling another.
Quote 4, INFJ and ADHD is fun. Burnout hits harder. Depressive spells hit harder. And when I stop hyperfixating, I lose my sense of self and my sense of worth.
This isn't just distraction. It's emotional whiplash. It shows how hyperfixation can give identity, but losing it can feel like losing yourself.
Quote 5, ADHD is basically a J disability. Without treatment, I'm an unhappy INFP.
That line stings, but it's powerful. It points to how untreated ADHD can strip away the very structure INFJs rely on, making us feel like we're not even ourselves anymore. These are real words from real people. And if you felt even one of those in your chest, you're not alone. In the rest of this video, we're going to break down why this overlap between INFJ and ADHD feels so intense, and more importantly, how to navigate it without losing yourself. If you've ever found yourself scatter-focused, zoning out mid-task, but then hyperfixating on something completely random at 2 a.m., you're not alone. INFJs know the push-pull of a mind that doesn't shut off, and ADHD brains live in that space daily. So, yeah. The confusion makes sense. Quick note before we dive deep. I'm not a clinician, but I am a researcher, an INFJ, and someone who lives for connecting psychology with real human experience. So what you're about to hear is grounded in neuroscience, psychology, and lived INFJ experience. Without the clinical jargon dump. Cool, cool. Because here's the truth. INFJs and ADHDers share one thing in common. We're constantly misread, and that can feel isolating, overwhelming, and sometimes like the world just doesn't have the right language for our brain. Here's the first myth. INFJs are automatically ADHD because we're deep, intuitive, and distractible. Nope. Being absorbed in people's emotions doesn't equal a neurodevelopmental condition, and ADHD doesn't equal mystical depth. Two different things. Clinically, ADHD is marked by consistent patterns, difficulty sustaining attention, impulsivity, and challenges with executive function. INFJs, on the other hand, often look distracted, but it's because our brains are juggling layers of intuition, emotion, and foresight. The source of the distraction is different. One is neurological wiring, the other is processing overload. Here's where it gets tricky. INFJs often get misdiagnosed with ADHD because of our scatter focus and burnout cycles, Meanwhile, people with ADHD who are also intuitive or empathic might get misread as being just INFJ sensitive, and that matters because misdiagnosis means missed support. So if you've ever been told you must have ADHD because you never finish your projects, but inside you're thinking, no, I do finish. It's just in 3-year epiphanic bursts. Welcome to the INFJ corner of the internet. And actually, this whole video is inspired by one of you. Someone left a comment on my last video that stopped me in my tracks because they shared how they kept bumping into this exact confusion between INFJ and ADHD. I just want to say thank you. You know who you are. Your words lit the path for today's conversation. And for everyone else, keep dropping those comments. I read them, I think about them, and honestly, your insights help shape where we go next. So keep them coming. And while we're here, if you're finding value in this and want more INFJ deep dives that connect psychology with everyday life, hit subscribe and drop a like. It tells me this is worth doubling down on. Here's a fascinating neuroscience note. ADHD brains show reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the hub for executive control. That's why task initiation and regulation are such a challenge. INFJs, however, often show high activation in brain regions tied to social and emotional processing, like the medial prefrontal cortex and the temporoparietal junction. Translation: ADHD often struggles with starting. INFJs often struggle with stopping. Different wiring, similar outcomes. So both INFJs and ADHDers can look like they can't focus, but for INFJs, it's because we're absorbing 5 layers of meaning and predicting outcomes before making a move. For ADHDers, it's because the brain literally resists sticking to one task. Same surface, different mechanism, and this is where so many of us spiral. We internalize the lazy, scatterbrained, or too sensitive labels. And that hurts because none of that language captures what's really happening in our heads. So let's get practical. For INFJs who feel ADHD-ish, here are a few strategies. Externalize your swirl. Use mind maps, whiteboards, voice notes. Protect deep work zones. INFJ intuition thrives in silence. Time box your empathy. Yes, literally set boundaries on how long you'll absorb someone else's energy. And if you do have ADHD, tools like body doubling, dopamine scheduling, and chunking tasks into micro goals can help massively. The overlap doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're navigating a brain that's wired for intensity, i.e., whether it's INFJ depth or ADHD dynamism. Either way, it's not a deficit. It's a system that just needs the right playbook. Personally, I've had moments where I thought, do I have ADHD? Because I'll be in the middle of writing and suddenly I'm researching the psychology of cat behavior. But here's the INFJ twist. I'll circle back at 2 a.m. with a finished script that somehow ties cats into human empathy. That's not ADHD, that's intuition chasing threads. So maybe the better question isn't, do I have ADHD or am I INFJ? Maybe it's, what patterns are helping me thrive and what patterns are holding me hostage? Whether you're an INFJ who's been told you might have ADHD or someone with ADHD who relates to INFJ traits, the overlap is real, but so are the differences. And learning how your brain works is not just about labels. It's about strategy, self-awareness, and finding tools that actually help you thrive. If this resonated, drop your story in the comments. What's your experience? INFJ, ADHD, both, neither. I want to keep learning from you, and chances are your comment might spark the next video. Your voice matters here because the overlap isn't the problem. The silence is. And the more we talk about this, the less anyone has to feel like they're misunderstood alone. And of course, if you want more deep dives like this one, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. Thanks for being here, thanks for listening, and most of all, thanks for being part of a community that values depth and honesty. Until next time, keep navigating that beautiful, complex brain of yours. See you soon.